NASCAR's got some big 2021 schedule deadlines approaching fast. NBC continues to invest in motorsports, and a couple Team Penske drivers who may be on the hot seat this year give their take on the upcoming season. We've got a lot to discuss on today's Out of the Groove. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. Hope you had a decent weekend. I spent a good portion of the weekend watching the Rolex 24 from Daytona. I love the Rolex 24. I don't follow IMSA that closely. I'd like to follow it a little more closely here this year and beyond, but I've never followed it that closely in the past. But I do love the Rolex 24 because it invites so many different drivers from so many different backgrounds together, to compete in this one big, kind of team-oriented, manufacturer-oriented endurance race. And it's really cool to see. I mean, we got Juan Pablo Montoya, Simon Pagenaud, Kyle Busch, and a lot of drivers from a lot of different racing backgrounds participating in this race, and it's really interesting to watch some of those stories unfold. So I spent a good amount of my weekend watching that. Not a lot of NASCAR news in the last few days. It's been kind of slow, but we do have a couple things to talk about, a couple stories that came out, a couple quotes that I thought were interesting from earlier today that I want to discuss, so I figured we could just jump into this however we wish. Let's see where should we start? Let's start with NBC. NBC is continuing now down this path of becoming kind of the motorsports hub. If you're a racing fan, if you like NASCAR, you like IndyCar, now, even if you like MotoGP, NBC is your place. NBC just signed a multi-year agreement with MotoGP to be one of their official broadcast partners. A lot of their events will be broadcasted on NBCSN. I know nothing about MotoGP. I'll completely honest, that's not the focus here. The focus, in my opinion, is that NBC, they've gone all in on NASCAR in recent years. They've gone all in on IndyCar. They now broadcast the entirety of the IndyCar schedule, and now they're continuing to dive even deeper into motorsports. They already have IMSA. They broadcasted the Rolex 24 across all of their different platforms this weekend. They're continuing to dive deeper and deeper into motorsports, and not just American motorsports. MotoGP is a worldwide thing. But this is really encouraging if you're a motorsports fan that NBC, one of the, big, there's only a few big, broadcast networks out there. There's only a few of them, and it's nice to know that at least one right now, NBC, is increasing its motorsports coverage. ESPN, which is owned by ABC Disney, that's a huge chunk of the entertainment business. They've kind of severed most of their ties with NASCAR. The little bit of Fox that is still independent, obviously, they're still big on NASCAR. They still broadcast half the season. But now NBC, which is, a Comcast company, that's another huge block of the entertainment business, of the media business. They're continuing to dive deeper and deeper into motorsports, and this is a good sign. This means that they're seeing some sort of return, maybe with it there being their NASCAR coverage or IndyCar coverage or a bit of both, or all their other motorsports that they broadcast. They must be seeing some sort of return, or at least see some sort of potential long term, which is why they're continuing to invest heavily into all these different types of racing. So good news if you're a racing fan. I know it's not specifically NASCAR oriented, but it is worth noting that a major NASCAR partner, broadcast partner, is continuing to invest deeper and deeper into motorsports. That's a good sign. Now, in a minute, I want to talk about kind of the impending free agency debacle that's going to be happening later this year. We have a lot of drivers potentially in contract years on the Cup Series side of things, so I'm going to talk about that in just a few moments. But before that, I want to talk about an article from NBC Sports, also that came out this past weekend, that talks about NASCAR's kind of pending deadline to release the 2021 schedule. Now, a while ago, NASCAR President Steve Phelps said that the plan was to release the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series schedule by early April, in just about 2 months, a little more than 2 months. That was the initial deadline that he talked about as kind of being, when they're gonna have all their deals in place and they're gonna be ready to make it public. Now that we're only about 2 months away, we're starting to get questions about what kind of progression is being made. 2021 has kind of been hyped up the last couple of years as, 2020 already is going to be the next gen era of NASCAR. It's the start of the next gen era. You got the next gen car. You're going to have some big names retiring, some new drivers coming into the sport, obviously trying to make a name for themselves. But also it's next gen because NASCAR's kind of promised major schedule changes. A lot of their contracts with a lot of racetracks are kind of up at the end of this year. NASCAR recently merging with International Speedway Corporation, who owns a lot of the tracks. Now NASCAR owns a large portion of the tracks on the NASCAR schedule, which means they have direct control over those tracks, which means it's much easier for NASCAR to, say, take away a date from one track or give a date to another track. It's very easy now for NASCAR to make those decisions themselves. So with all this kind of stuff building up over the last few months, couple of years, the hype is real. What kind of schedule will we see in 2021? NBC Sports, Steve Phelps, some other players in NASCAR shed some light potentially on what we can expect when this announcement is made here in the next couple of months. In this article, Steve Phelps specifically said that they are looking at tracks that can fill up their grandstands. When it comes to the 2021 schedule, Steve Phelps said that they are looking for tracks that consistently fill up their grandstands. That's one thing that is kind of worth noting here. I'm thinking of, NASCAR racetracks in recent memory that do a really good job of filling their grandstands and that people consistently see as, successful weekends. I think of Watkins Glen, which has sold out, I think, their last 5 races, the last 5 years. thing about Watkins Glen is it only seats maybe 40,000 fans. Compare that to Daytona, which seats over 100,000. Or look at Phoenix Raceway, I'm sorry, it's back to Phoenix now. But the last couple years since they renovated, they've been able to sell out every single race. But again, that's only 40,000 seats. I say only. 40,000 would sell out, any baseball stadium in the country, double the size of most NBA arenas, so 40,000 people is a lot. And that's not necessarily counting everyone who camps out, and there's a lot of other people involved too that maybe don't quite get factored into that number. But what's interesting about Steve Phelps saying this is clearly NASCAR cares a lot, it sounds like, about perception. When people turn on a race, if you're a casual NASCAR fan, you flip it over to NBC or Fox and you're watching the Brickyard 400 and you see, probably still 40,000 people at that race, but in a venue that seats like 300,000, it looks like no one's there. And if you're clicking around and you stop on that race and you see a lot of gaps in the stands, you see a lot of silver bleachers bleeding through the crowd there, your perception of NASCAR is going to be that it's not doing well. And, obviously you'd be right, NASCAR used to sell out Indianapolis, but it sounds like NASCAR really wants to focus on tracks like Watkins Glen, which consistently have packed grandstands, even in this day and age. Phoenix, consistently packed grandstands. The Daytona 500, 100,000 people still go to that race every year. It sells out pretty consistently. What this says to me is that NASCAR is, again, interested in short tracks. Tracks like Martinsville only seat, I don't know the exact number, I think it's around 50, 60,000, but they sell most of those tickets every year. Darlington is not a short track, but it's, less than a mile and a half. It's a oddly sized track, but it consistently packs its grandstands. Its grandstands don't hold a lot of fans compared to Talladega or compared to Indianapolis, but it still holds a good amount. What this says to me is that NASCAR could very well take a date away from Texas Motor Speedway. That comes to the top of the list in my opinion. And I love Texas Motor Speedway. For years that was my home track, even though it was 4 hours away. But Texas Motor Speedway still seats around 130,000 fans. I've heard recently that they're considering tearing grandstands down. They've already tore down the backstretch grandstands, but that was pretty small and meaningless. Their main grandstands on the front stretch at Texas Motor Speedway still seats well over 100,000 people. And, we still get 40, 50,000 people to those Texas races, but like I said, the same issue with Indianapolis. There are a lot of gaps in those grandstands. So the perception is that Texas Motor Speedway is not doing well, even though it consistently is selling more tickets than Watkins Glen. So I just find it interesting that NASCAR really, really cares about the perception of its races. It's very much a cosmetic thing that they're worried about. They're worried about what people are going to see when they turn on the race. Not necessarily how many butts are actually in the seats. They just want to see full grandstands. So take that how you will. When it actually relates to the 2021 schedule, I just look at places like Indianapolis. They're testing the road course configuration for the Xfinity Series this year. Could that perhaps be in the works for being added to the Cup Series schedule at one point? Maybe put some more butts and seats over there. I think of Texas Motor Speedway. It has 2 dates. It's had 2 dates for years. Good chance it goes down to 1 date. They've talked about going to Circuit of the Americas down in Austin. They tested there. Tony Stewart tested there a couple months ago. Not sure if that's happening in 2021, but you gotta believe NASCAR's trying to shake something up. So I think of Texas, I think of Indianapolis, Pocono. I give Pocono a lot of grief, but Pocono is doing it right. They seat, I think, 70,000 people approximately in those grandstands. Adam Stern reported just the other day. Pocono doubleheader grandstand ticket sales are well up into the double-digit percentages versus last year for the 2 Cup Series races that will be run in the same weekend later this summer. So Pocono, mixing it up with their schedule, trying this whole doubleheader thing idea out, is boosting their ticket sales from the sounds of it. Now, Pocono already did a pretty good job of bringing fans out to that racetrack. Fans love that track. I don't know why, but they love that track. So little schedule changes like that could prove to be very lucrative to NASCAR, but it sounds like they're very focused on perception. They don't want people to flip over to a NASCAR race and see Indianapolis and see those gaps in the grandstands. They want people to flip over and see Talladega. They want people to flip over and see Daytona. They want people to flip over and see the Bristol night race or Darlington or Watkins Glen. I'm just thinking of races that consistently have packed grandstands. Michigan usually does a decent job. I don't remember, I think last year was a little lacking, I remember, but most years Michigan pretty packed, even though they have 2 dates, so that's impressive. Anyway, interesting take there. Also, Ryan Newman in the same article from NBC had some things to say about his ideas going forward, what NASCAR should do to the schedule. Thought this was interesting coming from a veteran Cup Series driver. We've got to mix it up and make the fans want to see something different, want to see something new, a different driver, a different venue, a different type of anything, not just a next-gen car. That's part of it. Going dirt racing can be done with the next-gen car. If Junior Johnson was here, he'd tell you, let's go race dirt. I'm telling you. Ryan Newman has a dirt racing background. He actually participated in the Chili Bowl a couple weeks back. So Ryan Newman definitely would love a dirt race. No surprise there. But yeah, Ryan Newman wants big changes. And I bet a lot of drivers do too. Anyway, y'all, we'll have to wait and see if NASCAR's still on track, hopefully, to release the 2021 schedule by the beginning of April. I'm wary of getting my hopes too high here. NASCAR has kind of promised the moon. There's no way they're going to deliver. Everyone wants something in regards to the 2021 schedule. There's no way NASCAR is going to be able to accommodate all of the needs and wants that fans have. There are going to be some things about the 2021 schedule that a lot of fans like, and there are going to be some things about the 2021 schedule that a lot of fans don't like. So just prepare yourself. I think you got to take the good with the bad. At least we'll see something different. I think that's 100% guaranteed at this point. How different remains to be seen, but it will be different. Anyway, let's talk about 2021 silly season stuff. It's early, but let's paint this picture here for a moment. Come around June, about 5, maybe 6 months from now, NASCAR silly season will be in full swing, I think. And this 2020/2021 silly season could be the most unpredictable yet. And this last year's was pretty unpredictable. Remember the Stenhouse-Buescher swap? The drivers didn't even see that one coming. But this year could be even crazier. Maybe not, but I think it could be very crazy. The way I look at it, the way, NASCAR doesn't make very many of their contracts public. You kind of have to speculate a lot here based on sponsorship, based on performance, based on history, etc., etc. But from what I can tell, there are only about 7 drivers in the Cup Series that I think have their 2021 plans set. Pretty much confirmed at this point. Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, probably Martin Truex Jr., I'd say Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, Kurt Busch, I know he signed an extension recently, and then I'd say Kevin Harvick are really the only 7 I would say, boom, they are going to stay where they're at for 2021. Beyond that, there are a few high-profile potential free agents. Kyle Larson is one. Ryan Blaney, his name has come up recently. We'll talk about him in a minute. Eric Jones continues to be kind of on a year-to-year basis with Joe Gibbs Racing. Alex Bowman with sponsorship issues. You never know. His future could be uncertain as a result of that. Jimmy Johnson, of course, is retiring, so you can have that 48 car wide open. 2021. We're going to have a lot of different faces, well, maybe familiar faces perhaps, but we're going to have a lot of familiar faces in different locations. And earlier today, Bob Pockrass was asking Brad Keselowski and Ryan Blaney about some of their future possibilities and what this 2020 season could do for their future careers. And that didn't make any sense. What I mean is he was asking them about, the recent crew chief change. Remember, just a couple weeks ago, we talked about it on the show, Team Penske completely rotated their crew chiefs around. Jeremy Bullins now is going to be with Brad Keselowski, and Ryan Blaney now is going to be working with Todd Gordon. From Bob Pockrass, Fox Sports, here's a clip of Brad Keselowski and then another clip of Ryan Blaney reacting to the question of whether or not this crew chief change was kind of put in place as sort of a proving ground for, Blaney and Keselowski to prove themselves ahead of this impending free agent season.
Contract stuff really starts in Q1 to Q2 of the season, and you won't be able to really evaluate this type of change till Q3, Q4 of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it is a contract year for me. It's something we haven't had too much discussions about. We've just been dealing with the change and things like that. I'm sure we're going to talk about it here in the next couple months. I'm sure. I mean, how you fire off this year, right? It's always performance. Whether it's the last 2 years or first 2 months of this year, it's always performance.
The difference between a veteran NASCAR champion's answer and a young, still relatively unproven driver's answer is pretty noticeable. Brad Keselowski definitely sounds more confident in his own abilities and his own history. He sounds confident that he's going to land, if it's not with Penske, say in 2021, but I think there's a good chance it will be still, he's going to land somewhere good. He has a lot of confidence. Ryan Blaney, he's won 3 races now in 4 full-time seasons, 2 of them driving for Team Penske. He sounds a little less confident, perhaps. But still, this is what I mean when it comes to the 2021 free agency, silly season, everything. No one is really safe. I mean, Brad Keselowski's won a championship with Roger Penske. He's won a whole bunch of races. He won 3 races last year and made a deep run in the playoffs. Brad Keselowski should be a lock to stay with Team Penske, but because there are so many other free agents out there, so many other good drivers, I wouldn't say there are many out there better than Brad Keselowski, but there are a lot of good drivers out there. No one's really that secure right now. Job security is not what it used to be in NASCAR, and sponsorship, of course, plays a large factor in this, and that's something Brad Keselowski's usually had a pretty good job with sponsorship. Discount Tire's been big, Miller Lite's been big, they always have a few other small partners. It's worth noting that in recent weeks, it's been kind of reported that maybe Miller Lite is not going to be as involved with Brad Keselowski this year as they've been in years past. So that's a long-time Penske and Brad Keselowski sponsor that might not be around in as big of a capacity this year, which could affect Keselowski's 2021 and beyond deal. It's really early to make predictions, but I think Keselowski will stay with Team Penske beyond this season. Ryan Blaney, I'm definitely not as sold on. Ryan Blaney's been good, but he has only won 2 races his 2 years with Penske, which is not bad at all. But both of those wins, I don't want to say they were fluke wins, but he cut it pretty close. He got that win at the Roval basically because the leaders took each other out on the final corner, and Blaney just took advantage of that. And he won Talladega this last fall by this much. So Blaney's been proven to be very good, very consistent, and he's done a pretty good job of continuing to bring in sponsorship, and that car is pretty much fully funded most weeks, so he's doing a good job on that department, so that might save him. But as far as his performance, you know, he's been okay. I think they could find someone better. And that hurts to say because I really like Ryan Blaney, but I don't know, a lot of factors are going to go into this. Cost, you know, driver salary, all that type of stuff is going to come into these, go into these decisions. But I just want to kind of plant this seed. That question from Bob Pockrass, those quotes from Keselowski and Ryan Blaney, get used to that. Because these drivers, a lot of drivers are going to be asked these types of questions over the course of this season, especially the first half of this season. And a lot of them aren't going to have great answers because a lot of them, I think, are very uncertain about their 2021 plans. So just be prepared. I know we all have favorite drivers, and believe me, I've been there. 2017 was painful for me as a Matt Kenseth fan because I knew that the announcement was coming, that he was not going to stay with Joe Gibbs Racing. I knew it was coming, and I was just dreading the day it actually became official. And so I've been there, but if you're a fan of one of these drivers, just be prepared. Might see some changes of scenery in the next few months. Anyway, y'all, I just wanted to plant that seed. That's all I wanted to say here. But thank you guys for watching. Not a whole lot of new, big bombshell news stories the last few days on the NASCAR side of things. So we'll keep our ears to the wall, ears to the nose to the ground. I don't know, what's the phrase? I'll keep my eyes and ears open. I guess that's all I'm trying to say. But thank you guys a ton for watching. Remember to subscribe if you're new. We talk about NASCAR every day, every week. Not every day. I don't upload every day. Not yet, at least. Multiple times a week, every week throughout the entire year. So you're in the right place if you like watching cars go in circles. We love to talk about cars going in circles, so you're in the right place. Subscribe if you're new. Big thank you to all of my amazing Patreon supporters as well. I could not do this show without the continued support I get from all of you on Patreon, so thank you so much for continuing to support me, support the show. I got some plans to travel to a few races here at the beginning of the season. Keep an eye on that West Coast swing, Auto Club Las Vegas. I'm coming for you guys, I think. Still finalizing a few things, but I'm hopefully gonna do some fan meetups. I'm gonna do a bunch of videos, content, give you guys as much behind the scenes access as I possibly can, and none of that would be possible without the support I get from you guys on Patreon, and all of you, of course, who watch at home, but a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. But thank you guys for watching. Less than a couple weeks away from racing again. The Clash is in just a couple weeks. ARCA at Daytona is in just a couple weeks, so this is it's gonna hit us before we know it. We got some season preview videos in the works, so thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you again very soon. Have a good one, y'all.